So I'm in a smart hotel in London, I've got a cup of coffee, I want some milk. Let's have a look. We've got semi-skim, they don't like that. Oat milk, what on earth's that when it's at home? Almond milk. All I want's proper bloody milk, not left-wing option.
The new norm ain't the same as the old norm.
The Reform Party, under the tutelage of its controversial leader, Nigel Farage, are making unprecedented gains in Great Britain's polls. Once the current Prime Minister's first term is done, there's a very real shot the UK will choose a far-right Prime Minister, a personal friend of Donald Trump, the architect of Brexit and the 21st century's answer to Oswald Mosley. But why the appeal? What is Nigel Farage, the man of the moment for the last decade, been doing to make the British public so horny for fascism? The answer may surprise you. Has he been campaigning hard on the issues that matter to the great British public? No. Because he's a strategic genius, he's let his enemies campaign for him. With Keir Starmer, a man who once claimed to want to make the positive case for immigration, now bragging about how he's going to clamp down on legal and illegal immigration.
The previous government were running an open borders experiment.
The whole political mainstream has just flat out accepted Nigel Farage's politics as their own, making Great Britain the first multi-party, one-party state. In the meantime, Nigel Farage has been doing the real important work, clamping down on the true evils of our age and speaking truth to power. And by that, I mean that after 2,000 years of subservience, humankind, under the command of Nigel Farage, has finally declared war on milk. That's right, say your prayers, cows, if that is your real name, because your days are numbered. Nigel Farage has you all figured out. Only whole milk is free from communist infiltration. And that's not even mentioning pasteurisation, because everyone knows that raw milk is even less woke than whole milk. Because the only thing less woke than drinking milk with the calorie count of a Big Mac every morning is taking the advice of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and contracting bovine tuberculosis for breakfast. Yes, a worm might have eaten this man's brain, but once the rational part of his brain had been devoured by that worm, he started talking like a batshit far-right conservative, so he must be good. Don't worry about how that worm got in his brain to start with. In fact, don't think about him at all. Think about Nigel Farage, the brave truth-teller who's telling it like it is. Oat milk? More like note milk. Soy milk? That's clearly for queers. Semi-skimmed? Yeah, I bet you've skimmed a semi or two in your life, haven't you, drinking that shit? No, clearly, the people's choice for thick, white, sticky liquid pulled from the tits of a cow is the kind with the highest concentration of animal estrogens. Because phytoestrogens are for the loony left. That's why they're called soy boys. Real men take real estrogens. How do you think I ended up looking like this?
What makes a man is its big titties.
Good afternoon, loyal soldiers of the Anti-Milk Brigade. I hope you've said goodbye to your loved ones, packed up your troubles in your old kit bag, and guzzled up all the full fat and raw milk you can get your hands on. Because we're about to eliminate the true enemy of the United Kingdom. Lower fat and plant alternative milk options. And of course, I, Bridget Empire, science and culture correspondent for staunchly anti-dairy newspaper The Daily Telegraph, am here to lead your battalion. Stand up straight, Private. But first, some words of encouragement. Why does the great Lord Nigel Farage care so much about milk? What makes some types of milk woke and some types of milk based? And why are we talking about this when so many people have actual real material problems they're begging politicians to solve? Is the war on milk a waste of time? Well, yes. And there's a reason for that. But as long as there's no political party taking action to solve any of the actual problems in society, it's going to be culture wars all the way down. Down with milk! Down with milk! You've skimmed your last semi, sunshine. Now, time for you to meet the orchestrator of your demise. Nigel Farage is the UK's foremost far-right politician, and despite having lost every seat he's gone for until 2024, is arguably one of the most successful British politicians of the 21st century, having gotten pretty much everything he wanted, mostly by being invited onto every TV show every 5 minutes. From Have I Got News For You, to Question Time, to I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Despite every TV network treating him like some kind of harmless buffoon, Farage used his decade of media appearances to constantly parrot his fascist worldview, slowly normalising his horrific ideas and getting the public primed for being convinced that everything wrong in society is the fault of immigrants and the EU, rather than people like his friends Elon Musk and Donald Trump, who make their riches by exploiting everyone with a net worth anywhere below that of a small country. As the former leader of the UK Independence Party, or UKIP, he campaigned for years for the UK to leave the EU. And he succeeded. So the amount of shit I had to go through to get my visa, never mind all the other shit, it's pretty much all on him. Well, that's not entirely fair. A bunch of other people, such as adult human bin bag Boris Johnson and Caucasian Gollum impersonator Dominic Cummings, had big hands in the Brexit campaign as well, and arguably they saw more material benefit from the aftermath of the disastrous farce than Farage did. For now. And I say for now, because there's a genuine chance this man will be our next Prime Minister. And I don't know if there are profanities in the English language foul enough to describe the way that makes me feel. Farage's popularity is partly down to the way he presents himself as a man of the people, playing down his background by suppressing his poshness, despite his father having been a stockbroker for the city of fucking London, and Farage himself being a privately educated former banker who spent his life swimming in money and exploiting the poor to swim in even more. But he always has a pint in his hand when he's on camera, so he must be just like you and me. Never mind the fact that he thinks semi-skimmed milk is left-wing, when it's the most commonly drunk type of milk in the UK. And about that, on December the 2nd, 2024, the Reform Party, the latest in Farage's series of right-wing parties from UKIP to the Brexit Party to now Reform, posted this video of Nigel Farage, supposedly in a hotel, something he calls a smart hotel, okay, absolutely outraged at the milk options available to him as he ate breakfast in a full suit, after having, by the looks of it, hid away the full-fat milk to give himself something to whine about.
So I'm in a smart hotel in London, I've got a cup of coffee, I want some milk. Let's have a look. We've got semi-skim, I don't like that. Oat milk, what on earth's that when it's at home? Almond milk, all I want's proper bloody milk, not left-wing options, proper milk. What's wrong with me asking for that?
I first saw this video in the form of a tweet on Reform Daily, a Twitter account, because I still live in the toilet that is Twitter and I can't get out. In the words of this delightfully normal tweet, building emoji, a smart hotel, but Nigel Farage says, I just want some milk. What's wrong with that? Cry laughing emoji. Even the simplest things matter. Reform UK will keep it real. British flag emoji, flexing bicep emoji, hashtag Reform UK, hashtag Farage, hashtag Milkgate, hashtag Save Britain. So, will Milkgate save Britain? Well, it'd be hard to do that when this didn't even make a splash on Elon Musk's Twitter, where far-right culture war bullshit usually does gangbusters. In fact, this is the first tweet about Farage that I've seen that doesn't have a million defenders and cheerers for this man in the replies. On the contrary, everyone replying to it is confused as fuck. Semi-skimmed milk is just normal, and we've had plant-based milk around the UK for over a decade. A bunch of people use it, and this isn't one of those things that's niche enough to manufacture outrage over. And yet this was obviously an attempt to do so. An attempt. After all, hashtag Milkgate, hashtag Save Britain. So what is Farage trying to save Britain from here? One thing about Nigel Farage you have to realise is that his true enemy, the real thorn in his side, the Batman to his Joker, is the humble strawberry milkshake. Milkshaking has been a common form of protest against fascists, and Nigel Farage in particular, in the UK over the past decade. Egging requires more precise aim, and let's be honest, the image of someone covered in milk is just very funny, especially someone who demands so much respect and fear as Nigel Farage. It's very hard to portray yourself as a powerful titan bringing Britain back to the way it's supposed to be, when you're covered in white and pink splatter, and your target audience is too busy laughing at you to hear about whatever minority they're supposed to be furious about this week. So many milkshakes got thrown at Nigel Farage, in fact, that the man himself had to make a statement about how hard it was for him to spread hate when people kept throwing milk at him, and how it really hurt his feelings. "What happened to civility?" he cries. "I just want to tell you that anyone brown should be thrown into a concentration camp, and for that I get mildly inconvenienced? This is outrageous." That's basically what he actually said, from The Guardian back in 2019. Since broadcaster and sometime politician Nigel Farage got covered in sticky banana and salted caramel in Newcastle on Monday, the air has been thick with condemnation. "Normal campaigning is becoming impossible," tweeted the far-right leader before pleading for civilised democracy. A new tune from the man who warned that unless it gets its precise flavour of Brexit, he would don khaki, pick up a rifle and head for the front lines. "The dousing was horrible and ridiculous," said Tony Blair, famed for his excellent judgment on weapon threats. And so the professionally outraged have taken to social media and TV studio sofas, bemoaning the debasement of our politics and whatever else they can squeeze into their allotted 2.5 minutes. Although no fan of lobbing objects at others, or indeed of high-sugar dairy products, I must confess that my greatest upset was not on behalf of the contemptible Farage, but at the revelation that milkshakes now cost £5.25. Oh, my sweet summer child. Nor did I shed a single tear when the far-right Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxi Lennon, took repeated dousings after he publicly accused every single Muslim of getting away with the 7/7 bombings. And when it was the turn of Carl Benjamin, whose most notable life achievement has been to joke about the MP Jess Phillips getting R-worded, I laughed. If this is Britain's milkshake spring, these are its targets, then I can imagine worse. But the full tweet is actually even funnier than this, because the foremost fascist agitator in the country actually complained about his opponents being too extreme. In his own words, "Sadly, some Remainers have become radicalised, to the extent that normal campaigning is becoming impossible. For a civilised democracy to work, you need the loser's consent. Politicians not accepting the referendum result have led to this." And so, straight out of the horse's mouth, milk is the weapon of the enemy. Milk is the tool of the extremist. If you open the anarchist cookbook, it just says milk over and over again. Fascism good, dairy bad. Cows are basically communists. Bovine, Bolshevik, milk, Menshevik, it's all there, people. They produce the milk used to bring the good old British black shirts down. We need a total ban on milk, cheese, yogurt and ice cream until these bloody bovine bastards are all deported back to whichever foreign shithole they come from. And based on some cursory googling, cattle were domesticated originally in Iran. So go back to the Ayatollah, you fucking mooing bastard, coming over here feeding our kids. Ugh, it's enough to make my milkshake. But to answer the question seriously, to actually get to the reason Farage is supposedly so mad, we have to understand something about Nigel Farage. That being that as a banker turned political heavyweight, raised by stockbrokers, he's never had to buy anything for himself in his life. Thus, when he sees a series of milk options, he expects it to just say milk. Anything that resembles the choice most of us get faced with day to day is left-wing nonsense. If Farage were truly a man of the people, he'd know that, as this graph from Statista shows, semi-skimmed milk, which Farage reacted to as if it was some newfangled communist nonsense drink, is by far the most popular type of milk among Brits, with 3.1 billion litres of left-wing nonsense sold in Great Britain in between February 2022 and 2023 alone. And even though the median reform voter is apparently 56 years old, and therefore this guy is just hyper-targeting the middle-aged divorced dad on the lower end of his age range to a pensioner who thinks he fought in the Somme, despite still being a twinkle in his father's balls during the war, and even among older people, this is still what most Brits drink. Now, plant milk, I get why he's mad. Anything that smells even slightly of veganism gets his brand of fascism so mad, he'd probably pasteurize his own blood with the sheer force of his rage. And that's despite the recent surge of fitness weirdos in the pandemic turning from wellness pseudoscience and Pilates obsessions into QAnon conspiracy brain fascists, thanks to a little too much time on Facebook. The right has a real bugbear against people with allergies too. There's a strain of conservatism that constantly rags on people for being allergic to lactose or gluten or nuts, as if it's a personal moral failing, because they simply can't conceive of a world where people's circumstances and material conditions affect the way they live their life. If you're sick, To a Tory, you're obviously not trying hard enough to get better. And that is exactly what they said when Boris Johnson got sick with COVID. And that's the attitude Johnson himself had taken about the victims of the pandemic before he himself got sick. But I'm in my 30s, and soy milk's been around all of my life. Almond and oat milk were later additions, sure, but lactose intolerance is incredibly common in the UK. So I don't believe for a second that Farage is actually mad about this. But for the far right to succeed, the public must constantly be engaged in the culture war. Because if they have enough time to stop pointing fingers, they'll notice who's really holding them down. People like Farage and his father. And the primary job of fascism is to ensure the masses are too busy fighting a culture war to fight the class war. Let's talk about raw milk. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the presidential candidate who had his brain half eaten by worms, is for some reason considered a sort of genius health guru by the right, despite the whole, having his brain eaten by worms thing, his penchant for eating wild animals and dumping them in Central Park in the middle of the night, and all of his freakishly wrong opinions about nutrition and public health. For the right, health is all about aesthetics. RFK Jr. is pretty old, but he's not super wrinkly considering that, and he's muscular. He looks great for his age, and yet he's missing half of his brain because a worm ate it. And he has a voice like a valley girl and a lich, had a baby, and then got voice training from the zombies from The Walking Dead.
There's no American now in my kids' generation. Sorry, my duck is calling.
Now, RFK Jr., among other things, such as being anti-vaccine and wanting to ban fluoride in water, is a fan of raw milk. Now, this might explain the worm, because drinking raw milk can be pretty dangerous. There's a reason we pasteurize milk, and it's not because Louis Pasteur was woke. It's because it's generally agreed to be a good thing when people don't die of preventable diseases. But given that fluoride is there to stave off gum disease, and without vaccines we'd still be suffering from outbreaks of polio, clearly RFK doesn't prioritize public health in the same way most of us do. And if you doubt that, RFK Jr. actually caused an outbreak of measles in Samoa. That's not a joke. That actually happened. In the small island country of Samoa, lives have been forever altered by an outbreak of the disease in 2019 that caused at least 83 deaths and 1,867 hospitalizations, mostly of babies and young children. Thousands more fell sick. The preventable illness was able to spread through the small, closely knit population of about 200,000 due to record low vaccination rates, stemming from a medical vaccination error, the Samoan government's public health mismanagement, and fueled by anti-vaccination sentiment, including by Donald Trump's pick to lead the US Health Department, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. If you want a vision of the future in the USA, blow this up to a country an order of magnitude larger. Good luck over there, guys, but we're not here to talk about vaccinations. We're here to talk about milk. And RFK Jr. is already taking action to further the spread of raw milk in the USA, and presumably to make sure everybody on Turtle Island gets a worm in their brain, just like their favourite muscle daddy, Bobby.
This is why you should be drinking raw milk.
It is easier for your body to digest.
Raw dairy actually has active and bioavailable enzymes, probiotics.
Raw milk also contains over 700 species of commensal bacteria in the actual raw milk fluids.
Kennedy recently wrote that he'll end the Food and Drug Administration's, quote, war on public health, including its, quote, aggressive suppression of many things, including raw milk. Yet there's no evidence for any of these beneficial claims about raw milk, while there's plenty of evidence that drinking it increases the risk of foodborne illnesses from things like salmonella, listeria, and E. coli, which can be deadly.
Mark McAfee, a California raw milk producer whose products have been recalled several times due to a bird flu contamination, said he has been approached by Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s team to guide the upcoming administration on raw milk policy. McAfee, whose dairy products were recalled after state officials detected bird flu virus in milk samples, said the transition team for Kennedy, the nominee to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, asked him to apply for a position advising on raw milk policy and standards development. The idea, he told The Guardian, would be to create a raw milk ordinance, mirroring the existing federal standard milk ordinance. Kennedy is a notable fan of raw or unpasteurized milk, including McAfee's products. If confirmed, he has said he would work to remove restrictions on raw milk, which the FDA and the Centre for Disease Control have so far advised against consuming. Kennedy said that with Trump in office, the FDA's war on public health would end, as would its aggressive suppression of raw milk. Raw milk, which is not heated to kill harmful pathogens, has been linked to the outbreak of bacterial infections, including a strain of E. coli that can cause kidney failure. McAfee's farm has also been involved in several lawsuits stemming from a salmonella outbreak that sickened at least 171 people in California last year. The federal government does not regulate the sale of raw milk, states do, but the FDA prohibits the interstate sale of unpasteurized milk for human consumption. In 2008, McAfee's company pleaded guilty to putting pet food stickers on its raw milk in order to illegally sell it across state lines for human consumption. So, raw milk will be more widely available, less subject to restrictions preventing everyday Americans from getting sick from it, sold illegally as pet food so your furry friends can die of preventable illnesses, and this wonder drink will even be promoted by the top health guy in the country, a man who enjoys drinking it at home. What could possibly go wrong, I hear you ask? It's only gotten 171 people sick in the last year, even while it's just drunk by cultish weirdos. Well, bacteria found in raw milk, which come through infected udder tissues, or the dairy environment including soil, cow manure and milking equipment, are not the kind that benefit our digestive systems.
Research suggests that milk carries huge amounts of viral particles. The most infectious thing in the cows is the milk, said Megan Davis, a molecular epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins University studying environmental health. In some cases, cows that tested negative for H5N1 in the respiratory tracts were found to be carrying the virus in their milk.
Cats that have consumed infected raw milk have exhibited severe neurological symptoms and died. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, from 1998 through 2018, there were 202 outbreaks linked to drinking raw milk. These outbreaks caused 2,645 illnesses and 228 hospitalizations. Pregnant women run a serious risk of becoming ill from the germ listeria, which is often found in raw milk and can cause miscarriage or illness or the death of the newborn baby. Now, people who hear all of that stuff and convince themselves it won't happen to them are usually the kind of conservatives who I hinted at earlier. The ones in the Tory party and those around Nigel Farage and those like them, that think sickness is a moral failing and that none of the symptoms listed would happen to them because they do everything right. Or they're the other kind of conservative I briefly mentioned, that got into right-wing politics from health cults and spiritualism, like RFK Jr. himself, who are quick to believe in conspiracy theories by doctors and health professionals, rather than believe that there are people out there who genuinely believe in public health and want people to be safe and well and not dying of preventable diseases. To them, the types of people who'd ban raw milk are suspicious. Why would people want to ban raw milk unless they had something to hide? What amazing benefits can raw milk give you that these elitist bastards won't let you have it? RFK Jr. is a little of both of these types, and clearly he thinks doctors and public health officials are untrustworthy to the point of believing grand conspiracy narratives to justify his beliefs. Vaccines, fluoride, pasteurization, these are all huge public health initiatives designed to make people as a whole less vulnerable to disease, at scale. But to people like RFK Jr., they just see the huge public health initiatives. And they look scary. Why are they so large? Why are they so all-encompassing? What's their real motive? These people will argue that raw milk has more nutrition, which isn't true. It's just as beneficial without any of the risks. But it sounds right, doesn't it? Surely a process by which something is treated might make it lose something valuable. And that's all that really matters to people who look for conspiracies everywhere, because they can't fathom the idea that some people genuinely have empathy for their fellow human beings and want to reduce suffering. The conservative belief that human nature is ultimately selfish, that everyone wants to gain something over everyone else in every interaction, leads to this kind of paranoia. Because if you truly believe that, how can you process huge collaborative efforts of humanity? The very things we've been doing since the beginning of time, from Petra in Jordan to vaccines. Because we're a social species. How can you explain that other than as a grand conspiracy? Surely people wouldn't put fluoride in the water because they genuinely want to reduce gum disease. How do they personally benefit from doing that? But for all that they've been led down the wrong path by conspiratorial thinking and pseudoscience, They are right about one thing. There is something deeply wrong with society, and there are people trying to hold the common man down. Their mistake is blaming doctors, public health officials and advocates, researchers and nutritionists. Again, the problem is the very people that are pointing to a false issue to get people riled up over. Nigel Farage, RFK Jr., Trump, Elon Musk, rich people as a whole, who exploit the working class for profit. Maybe RFK Jr. truly believes the stuff he's saying. He is missing part of his brain after all. It wouldn't be the first example of rich people believing the false narratives invented to protect them by others of their stature. But I can't help but think that Farage, drumming up such a frivolous attempt at a culture war, knows what he's doing. And even if a lot of the people driving these outrage cycles and conspiracies are doing this because they are true believers, they are ultimately serving the same interests. They're taking attention away from the real issues, to fight in a struggle that will ultimately result in more people getting sick, more people dying from preventable illnesses, and RFK Jr. and his friends getting filthy rich. The culture war must never end. There's always a new fake issue to get outraged over. Because if it ever stops, and people notice that they're still being exploited, they might actually start to question the people doing the exploitation. The culture war is a shield that protects the wealthy from class war. And I say, it's high time we start the milkshake spring. Thanks for watching.
You know there'll be jokes.
Milk. Milk.
Everything's changing and I don't know when.
Left-wing options.
Thank God for
Proper bloody milk.
and this shit most means X is the home for free speech.
Hey, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you like this video, give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and tell your friends, share it everywhere. And if you got some money around, I would really appreciate a Christmas bonus, because December does not pay well on YouTube. So if you want to help me out, I would really appreciate that. As I've said multiple times, I have a big overdraft, and I would like to get out of it in the next as soon as possible. So thank you in advance for your help. You can help me out by giving me one-time donations on Ko-fi or PayPal, links below as always, or better yet, sign up to my Patreon, where you get early videos, access to the members-only Discord, my Nintendo Switch friend code, and exclusive content. In addition to all that good stuff, you'll also, if you sign up, get your name read out at the end of each video, just like these lovely people. Quesadilla de Tortilla Azul, Leron, Adam Lees, Daniel Nevels, No Not That Paul, and me, Madalena Guaya, Ben Murphy, Lex Phoenix, Enter Kuzitz, Janelle, Mira D, Jane Senior, Boa Ear, James W, Marv and Orr, Tamsin, Bob the Builder, 5445554, Deborah Laboon, Vegas, Zilla's Athenaeum, Vince Whitaker, Amelia Unchained, Sarah, Jason Haig, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helena Real, Sierra Whiskey, Arestria, Ali Catskill, John N, Scully, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Shield Thaden, Robin Podolsky, Turtle Choom, Casual Observer, Manta Ray, Cordy Burt, Sleepy Slug, Philippa Tabrogga, Soma Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Greg Noble, Deanna McMillan, Caroline Regalado, Alexander Lilly, Howard Lott, Nerania Scarjan, and Joey Cobalt. Now, no milk for you. Milk is woke. But it's delicious.